The critically acclaimed 2000 film Memento, directed by Christopher Nolan, is a fan and critic favorite. It incorporates weighty themes like revenge, identity, and trust into a truly exhilarating narrative and is one of my favorite films. Quick disclaimer, this video will contain many spoilers for the film, and I highly recommend clicking off if you haven't watched it before. The film follows Leonard Shelby, who suffers from severe memory loss. Nolan's unique directing style is what truly makes this film a masterpiece. The movie does not follow a traditional chronological plot, instead moving simultaneously forwards and backwards through time. Only as the film progresses, the audience is given the context for earlier scenes. This leads to a climax in which the audience is given the questions, not the answers. The most striking narrative, the one shown in color, is shown to the audience in reverse, with each scene beginning with the end of the next and ending with the beginning of the last. While I can go on and on about how this film is masterfully directed, that is not my intention. It is through this lens, characterized by its unique chronological order, that the protagonist's reality becomes clear. Because Leonard cannot form any new memories, he must continually create systems with which he can record memories and knowledge externally. We see this through his system of notes, his Polaroid photos, and his tattoos. Using these systems and records as a de facto memory, he's able to retain what he feels is a sense of purpose and meaning. The film's strongest themes explore our perspective on subjective and objective reality, but, as most great films do, it also carries much wider significance. What I want to focus on is how the film offers a thought-provoking analogy to culture and the ways we determine truth and meaning, and that, in many ways, Leonard's struggle is something we can all relate to. Memento is not a film that gives itself easily to the viewer. It leaves many variables up to the audience's interpretation and requires more than a little bit of thought to decipher and understand. Christopher Nolan has said that when pitching the film, he was advised it would be too hard to understand and audiences would not enjoy it. In an interview, he speaks to his belief that the most important things left up to the interpretation of the audience are the same ambiguities that his protagonist is faced with. He believes the most interesting ambiguity in Shelby's narrative is the unknown span of time that has passed since he lost his ability to form memories.
That gap is unspecified. The lead character, because of his particular condition, he can never know how long that's been. He's cut loose in time, effectively. So we never wanted to specify for the audience. We imply a length of time to it, because it's the time in which he's had these tattoos put on, he's been living this life, and so forth. So that gap, to me, is where the most interesting ambiguity of the film is.
The questions that this raises for the audience are the exact same questions Shelby has, leading us to learn something more about ourselves and how we view our subjective and objective reality.
The end, we never wanted to step fully outside his head and, specify too many of these things in terms of an objective reality. Because to me, one of the interesting things about the film and what we were trying to do is essentially present an idea of the tension between our subjective view of the world, the subjective way in which we have to experience life, and then our faith in an objective reality beyond that. And so I think the audience at the end of the film is left to make certain of the same judgments that he is. They're invited to believe or disbelieve certain elements of what is supposed to have happened in his life, much as he is.
The aspect of the story that truly captured my attention during my first time watching this film was the elaborate system that Leonard uses to record information. His philosophy for these systems can be seen through the black and white sequences at the beginning of the film.
You know who you are, and you know kind of all about yourself. But just for day-to-day stuff, notes are really useful. Sammy Jenkins had the same problem, but he really had no system. He wrote himself a ridiculous amount of notes, but he'd get them all mixed up. You really do need a system if you're gonna make it work.
This system is his life, how he knows what, when, where, and why to do anything. Just as our own knowledge and memories form the basis for our actions, with our current and recent experiences dominating, Leonard's notes help him determine how to live.
You kind of learn to trust your own handwriting. That becomes an important part of your life. You write yourself notes, and where you put your notes, that also becomes really important. You need like a jacket that's got like 6 pockets in it, particular pockets for particular things. If you have a piece of information which is vital, writing on your body instead of on a piece of paper can be the answer. It's just a permanent way of keeping a note.
Leonard's trust in the system is his fundamental belief, because it is the only truth he thinks he can be certain about. Just as all people must trust their own morals, beliefs, and memories to a certain extent, Shelby takes his own system as the most objective and therefore the most trustworthy meaning. This is why he follows it. It gives him an unchanging, objective purpose.
I have a more graceful solution to the memory problem. I'm disciplined and organized. I use habit and routine to make my life possible. Sammy had no drive, no reason to make it work. Me? Yeah. I got a reason.
While Leonard's subscription to a system might seem unique to Christopher Nolan's protagonist, I would argue that this can, in many ways, be analogous to how each and every one of our belief and knowledge systems function. Leonard Shelby adopts and trusts his system just as we adopt and trust culture. First, let me clarify what I mean by culture. Merriam-Webster defines culture as the integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends on the capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge to succeeding generations. And this is the understanding of the word that I intend. Shelby's systems can be thought of as a sort of culture, which, rather than inheriting from preceding generations and passing on to future generations, he inherits and passes on to and from his past and future self. We are each born into this world without cultural knowledge, and as we learn, we adopt culture from those around us. Within our social societies, our knowledge, beliefs, and behaviors are influenced by culture to a great degree. As described previously, a similar influence is observed on Leonard's knowledge, beliefs, and behaviors in Memento. While his core values and knowledge do not shift over the course of the film, because he is unable to form new memories, the external system of knowledge he develops has clear effects on his behavior. Although this does not necessarily function in the same manner as passing knowledge between generations, it is still, in essence, the same, since his future self will have no access to the true context of the knowledge being transmitted, just as we do not have access to the true context of the culture we inherit. Culture, which is made up of the knowledge and beliefs we acquire from those around us, shapes how we understand and interact with the world, in the same way that Shelby's notes shape his actions and beliefs. However, this influence can clearly be a dangerous thing. In Memento, the audience is shown how Leonard's trust in his system leads him down a road that might not actually line up with his true beliefs and morals. This path provides him with the facade of an objective purpose to follow. In reality, though, he ends up following the system itself and those around him who attempt to influence it, not the purpose he feels it gives him. Placing blind trust in such a system is obviously misguided, even if it might be easier for Leonard. Such danger is also clear within culture. There are numerous examples throughout history of dangerous attempts to manipulate culture. One prominent example that springs to my mind is a particular German World War II era youth education program, which I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name without being flagged by the YouTube algorithm. Regardless, the influence of these inherited systems of belief are clearly something potentially dangerous and important to be aware of. Leonard Shelby's main dilemma, and arguably ours as well, is determining who and what he should trust. If he allows his actions to be guided by others, he risks becoming manipulated and used, as he has no way of concretely mapping their intentions over time. If he trusts no one but the system that he lives by, he risks a similar manipulation, only in this case, by the system of knowledge itself. This is the greatest danger of culture. If the systems of meaning we adopt become too singular or unchallenged, then we face a life led not by our own values or desires, but rather those of an alienated structure that does not have our best interests at heart. This has become the concern of many contemporary philosophers, including prominent figures like Marx and Foucault. Christopher Nolan's protagonist finds himself firmly in the structure's grip. Even though this system is of his own design, it seems as though it controls him more than he controls it. He trusts the system of knowledge, more than he trusts any other perspective, even his own instincts. This stems from Leonard's faith in truth, in fact, a belief which, unbeknownst to him, but made clear to the audience, fails him time and time again.
Oh, well, I go on facts, not recommendations, but thank you.
Lenny, you can't trust a man's life to your little notes and pictures.
Why not?
Because your notes could be unreliable.
Memory's unreliable.
Ah, please.
No, really. Memory's not perfect. It's not even that good. Look, memory can change the shape of a room. It can change the color of a car. And memories can be distorted. They're just an interpretation. They're not a record. And they're irrelevant if you have the facts.
However, even when he is presented with information that leads him to realize this, he chooses to ignore and disavow it. It is easier for Shelby to follow a false purpose than to have none, even if this purpose leads him to do terrible things.
Can I just let myself forget what you've told me? Can I just let myself forget what you've made me do?
Hey, that's not your car.
It is now.
Jesus Christ, you can't take it.
Why not?
Because the guy you just killed owns it. Somebody will recognize it.
You know, I think I'd rather be mistaken for a dead guy than a killer.
Again, this offers an insight into our own relationship with culture. Leonard rarely questions his systems of knowledge and accepts them as his own. He believes he is in control of them, even as they control him. This reflects a broader message. Culture is often not something we actively engage with, but something we are passive to, something that influences us, often without our awareness and in ways we do not understand. When we accept these systems without question, we risk mistaking inherited beliefs for personal ones. This is the warning I believe Memento portrays. Often, the distinction between subjectivity and objectivity is wholly arbitrary, and yet it can govern how we interpret our reality. Memento illustrates how personal narratives, shaped by our selective memories and external influences, can feel entirely self-determined while being deeply conditioned by forces beyond our control. The film warns that, when we unquestionably accept the frameworks we inherit, we lose sight of the ways which they shape our understanding of truth. So, the next time that you recognize your belief system, your knowledge, influencing your behavior, stop for a moment to engage with a particular belief that is influencing you. I do not believe that cultural knowledge is fundamentally controlling, but I do believe that it can be, and that it can be incredibly dangerous when it is. Unlike Leonard Shelby, most of us possess the ability to form memories, so please think before you let your system of truth determine your behavior, especially when your actions involve other people.